Thank you guys for joining me. Thank you to Elevate for sponsoring tonight, as usual. Continuing now with Parashat Yitro. Sorry for the few week hiatus. I was away, but Baruch Hashem, we're back and we are resuming. Parashat Yitro, there's a lot you can discuss. The past few years I've spoken about the Divre. It's probably like the main idea of the parasha, the 10 Commandments. Tonight I said, okay, we spoke about that for 2 years. We'll pivot and we'll speak about something else that applies also equally to our lives. I think we can learn a lot from the beginning of the parasha. The parasha begins, Vayishma Yitro, Chohen Midyan, Choten Moshe. Yitro, the father-in-law of Moshe, heard. So the commentaries ask, what did he hear? And Rashi explains, based on the Midrash, he heard about the splitting of the sea, and Kriyat Yam Suf, the Exodus, the miracles that occurred in Egypt. And long story short, the Torah is telling us that this shmua, this rumor, this idea that Yitro heard, sparked some sort of teshuvah and some sort of drive to come close and connect to the Jewish people. And the Torah tells us that he does this and connects with and joins his son-in-law Moshe and converts to the Jewish people. Now, there's a big lesson behind this, and let's first say that with a story. There was a Rabbi Reuven Karelnichstein. That's how the book writes it. I don't know, in English it would probably be easier to read. But he had to travel to America to do a medical procedure. And he knows the famous Gemara that says if anyone who is who needs a medical assistance should always beseech a big rabbi and get a beracha. So he wanted to go. He drove to Yerushalayim until he got to the yeshiva Esh HaTorah, Eish. And over there was a Jew that was sitting named Uri Zohar. Okay? You're very good. What's up, how are you? Come take food. We just started. We're talking about Yitro, how it began by Vayishma Yitro Chohen Midyan, that he heard something and joined. So he wanted to go get a bracha from Uri Zohar. Rabbi Reuven gets to Yerushalayim, gets to Jerusalem, goes into the yeshiva and sees Harav Uri. Says, Rabbi Uri, give me a bracha, please. And Uri Zohar looks up. Uri Zohar, if you don't know, was the number one actor in Israel. He was the king of the king, irreligious. Every Tel Aviv person, every non-religious individual, he was on their walls, posters, good-looking, charming, funny, charismatic. He was the guy in Israeli movies and art.
Like James Bond.
Exactly, for example. But he was a person, meaning his name was Uri Zohar, like Leonardo DiCaprio, for example, of Israel. And everyone was obsessed with him, and everyone wanted to be him. He passed away like 2-3 years ago. Oh. But he lived in our generation. He was the top guy. And then there's a famous progression that no kippah, not religious at all. And slowly but surely, he was growing and becoming more religious. And he would start acting with his tzitzit out. Then there was a kippah on. And then he stopped acting on Shabbat. He stopped playing. He started keeping Shabbat and kashrut. And slowly but surely, he became not just a regular observant person, but he became a rabbi, Rabbi Uri Zohar. He was Choser B'Tshuvah, and he was really, really sanctified Hashem's name. And he went from the king of Tel Aviv to, quote unquote, the king of Yerushalayim. And his whole transformation caused a big teshuvah movement in Israel. All the people who grew up watching him, seeing his transformation from not observant to observant. It was a big, powerful lesson for many, many Israelis. So this guy wanted to go get a bracha from Uri Zohar. He had to go get a medical procedure, he wanted to get a bracha. And the Uri Zohar looks up, he's sitting in Eish, looks up and it says, I'm sorry, you got the wrong address. No one has ever asked me for a bracha before. Like, why would you want a bracha from me? I just became religious like a few years ago. Like, how can I help you? And the Rabbi Reuven says, no, please, Rabbi Uri, I'm begging you, I didn't make a mistake. I came all the way from Bnei Brak just to get a bracha from you. Please give a bracha. So Uri Zohar looks at him and says, okay, you should be healthy. That's it. Refuah Shlema. Simple bracha, 2 words. But why did you end up at me? What caused you to get to me? And he says, 2 times a week I go from Bnei Brak to Bat Yam on the highway, on the main road. And that street is a very, very busy, very packed street with a lot of advertisements, a lot of marketing. It's a lot of eyes, a lot of feet, a lot of cars travel on this road. And for twice a week I go to give a shiur, says the rabbi to Rabbi Uri Zohar, and says, and twice a week I'm driving on this road and I see a big billboard that says, and I'll read it in Hebrew, then I'll explain, Uri Zohar, Acharei hakol, galelanu hakol, madu azavta et hakol. There's a big billboard saying, Uri Zohar, after all, you performed and revealed everything for us. You have it all. Why do you leave it all? Meaning it's a play on words, but they were questioning how come and the motive that Uri Zohar had to be Choser B'Tshuva. And he said, I saw this sign twice a week, and I'm like, wow, what a Kiddush Hashem. You sanctified Hashem's name, that it caused an uproar, and people were, if he did it, maybe I should do it, and caused so many people to come close to you and do Teshuvah. That's why I want a bracha. The amount of Kiddush Hashem you did, I want a bracha from you. So Rabbi Uri Zohar, okay, he's like, I never heard this story, so he closes his eyes and gives a real bracha, wholehearted bracha, to this rabbi who needed to go to America to get a medical procedure. This is an analogy, it's a story. It happened in our generation. Anyone who is Israeli knows this Uri Zohar. But the idea is much more than that. The idea stems from Yitro. Where did Yitro gain the power, gain the strength to come back to join the Jewish faith, to join his son-in-law and become Jewish? Yitro was the top idol worship priest in the world. He was like the Pope. He's literally like the Pope. He had all the money, all the wealth, all the followers, all the power. Everything resided at his feet. Yet he somehow had the strength and the courage to step forward and join his son-in-law and Moshe and the Jewish people. What? How? And the answer is very simple. I said in the beginning, and I'll repeat it now. Vayishma Yitro. Yitro heard. The Midrash says he heard about the miracles of Egypt, about the splitting of the sea. But very simple. He heard, and not only did he hear, but he acted upon that rumor, that shmuah, that what he heard, and came and joined the faith. This is a very important idea, and I think it's something we can channel into our lives even more than just this fluffy idea of Vayishma, of hearing. There's a very famous book, 10 Dumb Mistakes Every Smart Couple Makes. Okay? It's a classic book in the Jewish tables, in Jewish bookshelves. English, modern, by Rabbi Ben-Zion Shafier. It's a very, very fascinating book. And it highlights, like the title says, 10 dumb mistakes that every couple makes. Okay? I'm not going to go through all 10, but it's a good book. If you want, you can read it. Number 3, he says, smart people know how to articulate well, but often listen very poorly. And this chapter, the third idea, basically speaks about the fact that people often have issues with listening, have difficulties and have problems when it comes to listening. And a major issue in dating and in Shalom Bayit, mainly in Shalom Bayit and marriages, is not communication, but the difficulty to listen. And I'm highlighting it from the story of Yitro, Vayishma Yitro, that Yishma heard. But he didn't just hear, he listened. And he took what he heard, that Shema, and he took it to heart, and it caused a change. Rabbi Ben-Zion Shafier in the book explains about the topic of listening. He says, most conflicts disappear when people feel that they were truly heard, not just corrected. Most often, and obviously right now, no one at the table has a spouse, but now is when we work on these things and we think about them and we internalize them, to God willing one day, hopefully very soon, when the spouse comes, we a little bit more educated and know a little bit more to train ourselves better. And Rabbi Ben-Zion Shafier says something so fascinating. He says, Most of the time, the spouse, when they're complaining or when they're communicating something, they're not looking for an answer. They don't want to be corrected or a solution, but they want to be truly heard. They want to be listened and to be heard. So he gives tips. How can someone work on their listening skills? It sounds so simple, but it's not easy. So he says, when you're listening to someone talk, what are you doing subconsciously? Are you strategizing how to respond? Are you thinking about what to say, how to say it? If that's the case, you're not listening, you're strategizing. You need to, when someone's talking, especially when your spouse is addressing you, you just have to sit there and listen. Sit there and absorb. Don't think how I'm going to respond. Don't think what I'm going to say, how I'm going to say it. But but just absorb. They're speaking to me, I need to be present. Phone away, I'm listening, I'm yours. And he brings a proof from the Torah. He brings it actually from the pasuk of Shema Yisrael. We say it every day, a few times a day. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Echad. The word Shema, it translates vaguely to hear, but it really means listen. It means listen, O Israel. Listen, the Jewish people. We have to listen and internalize and set it in our hearts. That what? That Hashem is one, Hashem is one. That Adonai Eloheinu Echad. That God, Hashem, our God, Hashem is one. But it's not just hear it, it's listen, it's internalize it. And it's the same idea. Vayishma Yitro, he heard what happened in Yetziat Mitzrayim, but he didn't just let it end there. He listened to it. He internalized it, and he came forward and joined the Jewish faith from hearing those miracles. So he gives one tip about how to work on ourselves in listening, in that skill of listening. And he says something fascinating. He says, don't respond until you can accurately repeat your spouse's feelings so they would agree to what you're saying. And it's an amazing task and goal and something we can work on when we're still young. How do I know that I'm listening? If I can repeat what I heard exactly how I heard it. And it's something that it's so simple, but people don't even know, don't even think about it. And it's one of the 10 mistakes. The book is an amazing book. If anyone wants to read it, I highly encourage it and recommend it. But the point of it is the idea of listening. We learn from Yitro, and it applies to our lives every day. For our marriages, for our relationships with our parents, with our friends. And it starts now, even before we get married. Whoever's not yet married. Is when I listen, I need to be absorbing. I'm not listening so I can respond and rebuttal and answer. But I'm listening so I can absorb, so my spouse can feel like they were heard. And if I'm capable of repeating what they said, then I can respond. Then I can explain my point of it. But most of the problems will diffuse, will be minimized, will dissolve if we learn how to listen properly. And I think it stems from the story of Yitro. Yitro didn't lack money, he didn't lack honor, he didn't lack wealth. He was literally the king of half the world. He was the Pope, he was the top priest for Avodah Zarah. But what? When he listened and he heard the truth, he came after it, he was drawn after it, and he was able to follow it because he knew how to listen, because he knew how to hear and knew how to listen. And it's a lesson we have from the first two words of the parasha. Vayishma Yitro. What does it mean by Yishma? We have to internalize it. It's not just hear, but it's to listen, it's to absorb. Based on what Rabbi Shafier writes in his book, help us in our relationships, in our marriages, God willing, and everything that's important in us, to rechannel hearing into listening. Chazak u'baruch.